Romans, the 7th chapter. Don't touch anything, Chris.
I'm not touching anything.
Yeah. Are you sat? I don't want to go any further until you're satisfied, Chris. We got the thumbs up? I can go?
Sure. I mean, normally there's like a red light that says recording, but...
There it is, right there.
Okay. Oh, there.
And there's a red light on the front of the camera.
Yeah.
Now my son's going to have to even cut more of the intro. Just kidding you. Just kidding you. Hey, so we're in Romans 7. And it is this bridge chapter, obviously, between 6 and 8. It's pretty detailed, and for so long, I never understood it. But there's a quote from Julius Caesar that I think helps us maybe understand what he's talking about here as we're talking about the law and you. In Julius Caesar, the play by Shakespeare, says, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves." Everybody wants to blame something outside of yourself. Don't look so pious, I do it as well. And we're always trying to blame something. Well, if it weren't for this, if it weren't for that, if it weren't for this, if that was different. And we don't understand that the problem is not in our stars, i.e. externals. And of course they worship the stars, the planets, and astrology and all that crazy garbage. But he says the problem is within ourselves. And unless you understand what is going on within yourself, you'll never understand God's solution for what's going on. Now, let me also say, and if you'll look in Romans, the 7th chapter, verse 1, I want you to see something because I've got to give you some context for what we're talking about here. In Romans 7:1, it says this, "Or do you not know, brethren?" Generally, when he uses the word brethren, what group of people is he talking about?
Believers.
Believers, but a specific group of Jewish believers. But we know it's Jewish believers because notice the next phrase. "For I am speaking to those who do what? Know the law." So, you've got to understand that he's speaking to a group of people whose whole lives, from sunup to sundown, were governed by the law. Everything was governed by the law, from sunup to sundown. Now, the average Christian today, when we start reading stuff like this, we're saying, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Well, the reason is because we've never had our lives so governed by the law. And, even to the fact how far you could walk on Shabbat, what the sacrifice had to be. If you went to a dermatologist and they found something they need to burn off, then you probably couldn't go to the temple because you had an imperfection on you. So there's this law that is just so pervasive in the first century. And of course that law, for the most part, it had more negative commands than positive commands, as I pointed out last week. When we're getting into this, he's going to be talking about the concept of the law. Now, I would submit to you that even though we don't have the Jewish law today, most of us have a little law guy in our brains all the time going, "You did what? You did that? I can't believe it. You call yourself a Christian?" The law either accuses us, and that is this conscience that we think is inviolable. That's conscience that can make no mistakes. But it almost serves like a Gentile law. Remember what he said in Romans, the 2nd chapter. That the law is written, for those who do not have the law, it's written where? In our hearts. We have some idea of what is right and what is wrong, and we are always hearing that being updated. The problem is, because we have sin-scarred souls, We get right, wrong, and wrong, right most of the time. So what Paul is dealing with is this idea of the Jewish law. And last week we looked at what the law could not do. And Romans 7, 4, and 5, I didn't show you these pictures, but it says the law cannot produce the fruit of God. Rather, it only produces, and this is in Romans 7, verses 4 and 5, only the fruit of death. That is a huge limitation to the law. Another way of saying that is, you in your own power, you in your own self-will cannot produce fruit for God. All you can do is produce the fruit of death. Now, at this point, someone might say, well, then the law must be sin. And here's a juror, here's someone that was just been convicted, and he's arguing with the judge. He says, no, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. The law is sin. And that's what he's going to have to answer at this point. Is there something with the law that is wrong? Most of us have had someone at some time tell us what we're doing wrong, and we tell them where they can go. I see a few facial recognitions of that. We do it all the time. And we want to say, you're an idiot. You don't know. You don't know. Now, here's the question. Some people would say, well, the law is sin. If it's pointing out stuff, then it's a sinful law. He's going to defend this, and we're going to get into this concept, the charge against the law. The first thing, he does a complaint. Look at 7a, the very first part of 7. What shall we say then? There's that same phrase we've seen here. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? Does the law, what is it? Who remembers the definition for sin? Sin is what?
Missing the mark.
Missing the mark. Does the law miss the mark on what is right and what is wrong? That's what they're accusing. They're saying that the law, he's answering that question. And then he says, is the law sin? May it never be. Me genoita, he answers there. And notice, he's going to clear the law of that charge. When he comes here, he's going to clear it. The clearing of the law is in 7b through 11. Notice what he says. On the contrary, I would not have come to know sin except through the law. I would not have come to know sin except through the law. The law educates us. If you read the 10 Commandments, you're going to see things that God likes and dislikes. In fact, as I said last week, most Judeo-Christian systems are based upon, like in America, based upon the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, etc., etc. So what the law does, it has a pedagogical, and we're going to see that, I love that word, pedagogical, it's not a dirty word, pedagogical aspect. The law, it defines sin. See what it says? Secondly, it shows that sin brings defilement. Look at the next verse, verse 8. But sin, you're going to see this word sin everywhere here. But missing the mark, taking opportunity through the commandment, produced in me coveting of every kind, for apart from the law, sin is dead. I was once alive apart from the law. Notice what he says in 9 and 10. I was once alive apart from the law, but when the commandment came, sin became alive and I died. And this commandment, which was to result in life, proved to result in death for me. Now, this is a nuance, and you probably won't pick it up. Notice what he said. I was once alive. What is What is the nuance of that? Huh?
I'd say aware.
I was once alive, but he says aware. Okay, I was once alive apart from the law. Is he talking about the past, present, or future? The past. Yes. That's very important. Paul is talking about a period in his life that was in the past. And he's talking about something he has learned that he is trying to pass on to all of us. And let's see, finally, what sin does in verse 11. For sin, notice sin. I mean, you could circle sin. It's so much in this passage here. But sin taking an opportunity. Now, when you say I took the opportunity, what does that mean?
It was presented.
It was presented. It's something that you had a chance to do. It was an opportunity. Yeah, it was a great opportunity for me, and I grabbed it.
Choice.
What's that?
Choice.
Yeah, it's sin, but taking the opportunity. Here sin showed up. Sin didn't make him do that. It simply presented the opportunity. That's big. You've got to understand, every day sin will present an opportunity for you. Every day. But at the same time, God presents an opportunity to become rewardable and say no to that sin. Sin is an opportunity commodity. You choose to do it, it's before you, but you don't have to avail yourself of every opportunity. Read on. What he says, for sin, taking an opportunity through the commandment, what commandment? Don't covet, deceived me, and through it killed me. We were talking, because I try to show up downstairs and have a cup of coffee if anybody wants to talk and have coffee before. And so Nathan and Chris and I were down there talking, and Nathan was sharing some of his testimony and stuff like that, and he was saying that what happened was, in his life, he thought, if I've got bad things, and if I don't get it right, then tell me. If I've got bad thoughts, I can take a drug, and that's going to take all the bad feelings away. Right? That is deceiving. Sin always deceives. It always deceives. And guess what? When sin comes in your life, it'll sound like the most reasonable, rewardable, expedient thing to do. Always does. Why? It deceives, and deceives. Notice what else he goes on to say. So sin deceives us. So you've got to, this is what the law says. So if you're aware of the deception, if you're aware that death comes from sin, and I don't mean it could be physical death, but I'm also talking about spiritual death. Your soul is dying. Every time you sin, your soul gets scarred and you die. It's that simple. And that's the problem with so many people that were raised in environments as children where sin was so tolerated. Sin was so promoted that becomes glommed onto their soul, and it's very difficult. I'm still saying they've got a responsibility, but it's very difficult for them to change. But he not only goes from the education of the law, the excellence of the law. There's nothing wrong with God's law. Why? Because God is the one who gave it. If you say there's something wrong with God's law, then you're having to say something's wrong with God. Look at verse 12 there. What does he say about the law? It is holy, it is righteous, and it's good. Now, if someone were going to describe you as a holy person, you would be grateful for that. If they were to say you're righteous, you would be grateful for that. If they're good, you would be grateful for that. Let me see if I can break down those so you understand. So you should be wanting to be holy, righteous, and good. And the law is holy and righteous and good. Holy comes from the Greek word that simply means set apart. Positionally, you are holy. You've been set apart. You're the child of God. The moment you believe, you're sequestered, you're set apart, you're a child of God. Conditionally, your holiness fluctuates. And everything, life makes it fluctuate. Righteous, if you take the OUS off, you just got the word right. In other words, you are living your life straight, right, not crooked. You're living it based upon, where do we find an idea of right and righteous? We find it in the Scripture. So not only are you holy, set apart, but you're living out that holiness in your day-to-day life. And if you do that, you know what? You're going to be good for people around you. Some of us have grown up with a toxic parent. That was not good. They were neither holy, righteous, or good. And that scars our soul. And our only hope is, and we're not going to get into it today, we're going to get into it next week, is that Jesus Christ does something. We're going to see what He does do here. But this is the law. Everything about the law is holy, righteous, and good. There's nothing that you can, if you will, that you can critique from the law. But the other thing about the law, it's an expose. You know, you listen to newscasts all the time, and just stunning, scandalous, sinful expose of some movie star. Well, you got to figure if it's a movie star, it's going to be an expose. They're hiding something, because they don't even know who they are. All they do is pretend to be somebody else all their life. So all of a sudden something comes out, oh, I didn't know he was like that. Well, yeah, he's always been like that. But he's an actor, so he fooled you. So an expose, and the expose is in verse 13. Notice what it says. Therefore did that which is good, the law, become a cause of death for me? Did the law cause my death? Meganoita. See, but you know what we want to do is say, well, if you hadn't been so righteous, if you hadn't been so picky, whenever you see that, it's always someone that in life is denying what is true about them. Always denying what's true. He goes on to say, may it never be. Rather, it was what? Sin. What is our problem? What? Sin. Now let me ask you a problem. The moment you become a believer, you don't have any problems with sin, right? Wrong answer, bozo. In fact, I believe you have more problems with sin. You're more. Why? Because you're in the Word. It's exposing us. It's saying you can't do that. Wait, I've done that all my life. I enjoyed doing that. What's wrong with bridge, Lord? No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean Personal attacks, yeah. No, golf is far more probably sinful than I don't know. There's a lot of Christians out on the golf course. I mean, they talk about God all the time out there. Right? Yeah. I hear the word God, but there's always something that comes after it. Maybe they're not Christians, I guess. But notice what he says. But that it might be shown to be sin, effecting my what? See, we don't want, every time you look at, I was talking to a guy, and he says, man, I just have a tough time and I'm not going to go into things, but not doing this, and it was a sin. I said, what do you do? He says, because I like it. Said, if you can, in your mind, see a skull and crossbones in front of it, because it's death, it's poison, it'll kill you. See, we don't think of sin as that. We think of sin as, it's a few sins between friends. But you see, it is death, and it destroys your soul. And if it destroys your soul, guess what? It destroys souls around you. That's what sin does. And that's what he goes on to say. May it never be. Rather, it was sin in order, that is verse 13, that it might be shown to be sin by effecting my death. This is Paul's past. He's going through it. He said, I was a dead man. I was a believer. But my soul was dead. And you can imagine, remember in Philippians 3 when he talked about all of his accolades, the Apostle Paul talked about Hebrew of Hebrews, as to the law found righteous, all this sort of stuff he talks about. So he is really having to deal with it, and everything he was putting his hopes in, the law became death to him. He goes on to say this. Notice what he says. In verse 13, to be sin by effecting my death, through that which is good, so that through the commandment sin would become utterly sinful. There is sin, and then there's utterly sinful. Generally, the utterly sinful is right before physical death. But he's saying, listen, sin is not something to be trifled with. And the law points it out. And because we're prideful people, we don't like it. We fight it. Therein lies the problem. So Paul goes on, and in this next section, let me get it up here, he cries out, I am of flesh. Now you can't really see it really because it's only a 300 nit light. It needs about a 1200 in a projector like that. But that is a bear and a man wrestling with a bear. Arm wrestling. Yeah. Becky's close enough she can kind of see it. Arm wrestling with a bear. There is a problem with arm wrestling with bears.
He's got gloves.
Yeah, and he wants to eat not only your arm, but your head and the rest of you. But yet, we must be careful. When you wrestle sin, you're wrestling with a bear. You must have help. And we're going to see what that help is. Notice what he says here. Wrestling with the bear. It's a conflict of the law. The cause of the conflict, look at verse 14. This is a key verse in here. He said, for we know that the law is spiritual. Now that word, spiritual, is pneumatikos. There's kind of an alliteration that's going on in this verse. It's in the Greek, you won't see it in the English. For the law is spiritual. Why is it spiritual? Because it's of God as spirit. It's of God. But I am of flesh, sarkikos. Pneumatikos, sarkikos. So here is the law that is spiritual, it's holy, it's righteous, it's good, but me, I am of the flesh. I am sarkikos. I am not holy. I am not righteous. I am not good. I have a sin-scarred soul. That's what Paul is saying. Now I want you to notice something else about that verse you may have missed. Look at verse 14. Notice the change of pronouns. Do you see them? What are they? We to what? I. So now Paul is becoming intensely personal. He says, we know that the law is spiritual. All you people that know, and by the way, look in 7 verse 1, 7:1, or do you not know, brethren? For I'm speaking to those who know the law. And he uses the same idea of know right here in verse 14. For we know that the law is spiritual. These people knew the law was spiritual. Then what is the problem? It's us. The law is spiritual. We are not spiritual. Pneumatikos. We are sarkikos. The law is what? Spiritual. We are not. But I am of the flesh, sold into bondage to sin. If you're in bondage, guess what? Do you have a will? And I've seen, I've seen people, and maybe, some people, well, I think probably the 12 steps are basically taken from the Scripture. The first step, what is it? My life has become helpless, out of control, or something like that. Do you remember that?
I never did AA.
Never did AA? The first step was, my life has become, basically it's out of control. It's out of control. You are helpless, so you need someone to help you. Paul in 12 Steps says it's a higher power, and all that sort of stuff. Notice what Paul says. So the first thing he says here in this cause of conflict, he says the character of the conflict, the cause of the conflict is that we're fleshly. The character of the conflict is in verse 15. He makes this statement. He says, "For what I am doing, I do not understand." Have you ever caught yourself in sin and said, "How did I get here?" Deception. You've let your guard down. "For I am not practicing what I would like to do, but I am doing the very thing I hate." This is a believer that understands, no, I shouldn't be doing this. This is the character of the conflict. We are in conflict with ourselves. Thirdly, notice what he says, the consenting of the conflict. How do you know he's a Christian here? Look at verse 16, what he says. He says, "But if I do the very thing I do not want to do, I agree with the law, confessing that it is good." If I hate doing this, what am I saying? The law's right. But it's kind of like, this conflict. I know all of us have been in that situation, maybe more than once, maybe more than twice, maybe more than thrice, where you're doing something you know it's wrong. I've been in situations, where in my mind I say, I probably shouldn't say that to that person. I know it's wrong, but I say it anyway. I'm stupid. And we've all done things like that. And you can put in whatever you want to. Notice what he says next. But the core of the conflict's found in verse 17. "So now," this is key. "So now no longer am I the one doing it, but what? Sin, which does what?
Dwells.
Has moved in its house trailer. Dwells within me." Where does sin dwell within us?
Sin-scarred soul.
Our sin-scarred soul. Every one of us in this room has a sin-scarred soul. We've talked about that. You think the wrong things, therefore you feel the wrong things, therefore you do the wrong things. That is where sin dwells. It's in thinking, feeling, and doing. And it feels a part of you. When something happens to you, I don't know what it is, maybe I could think of some of my lesser sins, When someone is texting on their phone in the car and the light has already changed.
And there's
And they're sitting there texting. And, as a Christian, you're saying, well, I'll wait just a minute, try to be sanctified here, And then if they don't, what do you do? Go. Now, is that probably what Jesus would have done?
I don't know so.
Maybe he'd get out of the car and say, "Excuse me, ma'am. I don't know if you noticed, but we've noticed behind you that light is now green, and you're get out of here!" No, but you know it, but you do it. And that's what he's saying right there, the core of the conflict. Verse 17, it's this sin-scarred soul we've got. What's that? Tell us.
I'm the one that gets the honks.
Oh, you get the honks. Well, it was so funny. I was coming home from men's Bible study on a Saturday morning. And sure enough, pulled up, and the reason this is fresh in my mind, because it happened to me yesterday morning. And so there's this, I won't say what gender, but this she is in the car there. And the light is changed, and she's sitting there, and she's down there, and you can see, I'm behind her. She's on her phone. And so I honked. I didn't honk continuously, just gave the little tap, like it. Oh, okay. And but she didn't give me, I'm sorry, or anything like this. And so anyway, I was in the other lane because I didn't want to get behind her again. And guess what? Pulls up to another light. She starts doing it. The guy behind her was not as nice. And she, scared me to death because he's in a big old truck with a big old horn, But he did it. But she kept doing it. Kept doing it. If I'd done that, I would never do that again because I don't want to be honked at. But you see, the problem is indwelling sin. All of us have these sin patterns. The way we think, which causes us to feel a certain way and causes us to do certain things, actions. It all starts up here. Right up here. Thinking, feeling, doing. That's where sin dwells. And just think about it. The more you sin, the deeper the rut is. You've heard the thing, I'm trying to groove in my swing, golfer. All golfers are trying to groove it. We wish we could groove it. I wish I could groove a swing as easy as I could groove a sin. But it's so much easier to groove sin. Now, look at this. The confession of the conflict, 18 through 20. He says this, "For I know that nothing good dwells in me." That is in his, notice what he says, nothing good dwells in me, that is in my flesh. We've got God's Spirit dwelling in us. So, Paul knew this. Nothing good in our flesh, nothing good dwells. It's a sin-scarred soul, and we've got to live with it. One day we won't have that. Won't that be nice? Where your soul is perfect, it's no bad thinking, no bad feeling, no bad doing. That will come. He says, "For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is in my flesh. For the willing is present in me, but the doing of good is not." Remember what it said about the law? That which is holy and righteous and what? Good is the outcome of being holy and righteous. Good is the outcome of being holy and righteous. You are good. Good and evil are contrasted in Scripture. Good is anything that enhances. Evil is anything that hinders. So if you're a good man or woman, you're going to enhance the lives of people around you. If you're not wholly righteous, you will not be good, you'll be evil. And you will hinder the lives of people around you. Verse 19 and 20. "For the good that I want, I do not do." But notice what he says. "I practice the very evil I do not want." Let's stop for a moment. He practices it. Paul says, "I practice it." Why? It deceived me. I kept doing it. And the more you do it, the deeper it infects your life. There's one thing you might want to practice a swing, but you don't want to practice sin. You need to stop it. What does he say? "No temptation has overtaken you, but such is common to man. God, who is faithful, will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but with the temptation will provide the way of escape in order that you may be able to endure. Say no to it till he gives you the way of escape." Verse 20, "But if I am doing the very thing I do not want, I no longer am the one doing it, but sin which dwells in me." First thing, if you don't remember anything, when you walk out of these doors, remember you've got sin dwelling in you. You're going to think the wrong things, do the wrong things, and feel the wrong things. All those things are going to be through. And the conclusion of all this conflict is found in verses 21 through 22. "I find then the principle that evil is present in me." We don't like to say that, do we? But evil is present in every one of us because we've got a sin-scarred soul. Evil always hurts. always hurts. The one who wants to do good. I want to do good, but I've got this evil as well. Evil is present. And then he says in 21 through 22, he makes it, and I gave you the next slide, but look at 21. I find then that the principle that evil is present in me, the one who wants to do good. For I joyfully concur with the law of God in my inner man. We know what God says. We joyfully concur. Yes, I want to be kind, benevolent, and altruistic. I just don't do it. But I see a different law in the members of my body, sin-scarred soul, waging war against the law of my mind. What is that sin-scarred soul? You've got in your mind what's right. But sin is going to wage a war. It's a war of ideas up here. And you've got to understand, this is what goes on 24/7 in your brains. This is what Paul's trying to tell us. In 22, but I see a different law in the members of my body, waging war against the law of my mind, and making me a prisoner of the law of sin, which is in my members. And he says in verse 20, was it 23, 24? Wretched man that I am, who will separate me from this body of sin and death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then on the one hand, I myself with my mind am serving the law of God. But on the other, with my flesh, the law of sin. It's always a choice that you shall make. The crushing effects, and if you're not making the right choice, you'll be crushed by sin. It always crushes, always brings death. But the Christ of the law is our Savior. We'll see that more next week as we get into the next part of it, but I want you to notice a couple verses. Galatians 3:24. Therefore, the law has become our tutor to lead us to Christ. It says that we may be justified by faith. The law cannot justify and it can't sanctify. It leads us to the one who can. We know we need something. When the fullness of time came, God sent forth His Son, born of a woman, born under the law, so that He might redeem those who were under the law, that we might receive the adoption as sons. Because you are sons. God has sent forth the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Papa, Father. Therefore you are no longer a slave, but a son. And if a son, then an heir through God. And finally, for Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes, the end of the law. And we're going to see how that takes place in next week's lesson on Romans, the 8th chapter. Question?